the total, perfect material image, working image of the original copy. Do you think that with this technology such a thing may be possible? Because if you can materialize a body using the fuzzy blueprints in someone's head, I think it would be far easier to make a copy of a VCR using the concrete dimensions of an original other model.
But think of all of the people who would put out of work.
Exactly.
And of course, if it were gold bars or silver coins and they were replicated in this way, it would be a total debauching of our currency and of our economy. Now, I don't think it was ever carried to that point. To my knowledge, they never used it for duplication. It was done as a point to prove that you could physically create something out of the human mind.
Fascinating. I remember another interesting story that came to me through Hal Wilcox, a very interesting contactee that I've been associated with for a very long time here in Los Angeles. In his visit to a planet nearby, it's about 5 light years away from our sun, the planet Celo, around a Barnard star. I'll hope that I would be correct here about the star. Anyway, on that planet, Hal observed an assembly line for producing a flying saucer, which was a very curious vision. I mean, a very curious show happened in front of him. It was an assembly line of something like cookie shapes that were in the form of seashells, of oysters. I mean, the shell oyster, and they would open, and then something like a dump truck or something would empty trash, metal scrap. Basically, a dump truck would empty the trash inside the shell. The shell would be closed, then some vibrations and some strange noises would come out of it, and when the shell is open again, there would be a gleaming, perfect flying saucer inside the shell. This may be another advanced alchemical technology of basically retransforming the elements and the elementary particles constituting them from the trash into the necessary metal shapes and profiles and the whole working mechanism of a flying saucer. So basically, these things are probably possible somewhere in the universe.
Well, it reminds me of a movie done by Spielberg some years ago entitled Batteries Not Included, where they had miniature UFOs flying around and one or two of them got damaged, so they went to the junk heap of somebody's garbage up on the top floor and actually the roof of an apartment house, and pulled all kinds of pieces of junk out and pounded them together and repaired their ship. Of course, it was a little miniature thing, perhaps 12 inches in diameter. But it was a curious idea, a nice touch that Spielberg put in there.
So back to the Phoenix Project and the materialization of material objects out of someone's mind. Well, would you tell us what happened later? How did these things... Actually, we were approaching that story of the monster, when the monster got out of the...
Well, basically what happened was in the final phase, when the group who decided to sabotage the station knew that it was cleared and it had to be done at that point, they gave the instruction to Duncan, the time is now, so the thing in his subconscious went into the transmitter and it created this huge monster. It looked like a Sasquatch. And it was reported as being anywhere from 12 to 30 feet high, depending, I'm sure, on how terrified the observer was when he saw it and how fast he could run. But this thing went around in late afternoon, apparently, on the base, smashing buildings, tried to get in the main radar tower, which was reinforced concrete and steel and very strong, could not get into it.
The monster was probably trying to beam itself up and away from our planet.
No, apparently it wasn't intelligent enough to do that. But it was just apparently programmed to kill and to destroy. And it did kill a number of people on the base who were walking around and picked them up and against the wall, and that was it. Squish. This thing was unbelievably strong. And if we assume 12 to 15 foot height, which I think is somewhat within reason, he could undoubtedly do this readily. But this thing kept running around amok. The station master, who was then Jack Pruitt, and the co-station master, who was Preston Nichols, knew what was happening and decided they had to end this thing. They went for the main power switches, local, providing in those days the power. Tried to remove the power by pulling the switches off, and they were frozen, just like on the Eldridge. So they then decided to get some cutters and went and cut the main power cables coming out of the transformer network, the transformer mini station they had there. Cut those, and nothing happened. Then they went the other side of the transformers.
This means that basically some free energy device was already running and siphoning energy out from the ether, from the same ether.
So they then went around and cut the cables on the other side of the transformers, and still nothing happened. And then I understand, according to the dialogue in the book, Preston says, well, let's go digging and see if there are some hidden cables. They did find some. And they cut those, and then the lights in the station went out, but the transmitter kept running, the computers kept running, and everything was running like nothing was wrong. So at that point, either Pruitt or Preston, or both, decided, everybody get out of here, we're going to have to go in the station and cut this thing apart with a acetylene torch. So they did. They cut all of the main feed cables between the computers, the modulators to the drivers for the finals, and when they cut enough cables and enough drive sections, then the whole thing went down and it stopped feeding itself power out of the Dirac Sea, and within a few hours E-Monster disappeared from view, went back to essentially the realm it had come from.
The Dirac Sea would be the vacuum sea, the etheric sea?
Zero-point energy out of the zero-point vacuum, in essence. But you have to consider that this computer, the whole complex of many computers, had all of the information from the leading edge of technology programmed into it, information about gravity, about everything else, and it was relatively simple for a computer like that to figure out how to extract free power from someplace because it was already dealing with hyperspace energies.
So you're implying that that was probably one of the first computer rebellions in the long list of computer rebellions in the secret military black projects that I suspect, that one of these was probably the famous Howe misbehavior in the fiction movie,
right?
2010,
right?
Or was it 2001?
2001 was where Hal rebelled.
So you think that the computer becomes self-conscious?
Yes, no less than a person than Albert Einstein himself said many years ago when he was alive, that he says, if you make a machine of sufficient complexity and feed it enough power, it will in time become of itself intelligent. He knew this, and it was proven by Montauk. So they had to chop it apart, and it went down, the whole station crashed, and it was never revived, and eventually all of the surviving participants were given their debriefing after January 1, 1984, and were scattered in various directions. And that was the end of the Phoenix Project.